Hello friends, welcome to beautiful Orlando, Florida. It's a rainy day here and I thought it was a great day to come check out a place I have never been before, the Orange County Regional History Center. Don't worry, my brass friend down here is not going to attack because he's brass. One of a couple brass statues out here in front of the History Center. Looks like they have a pretty cool exhibit going on right now about unicorns and dragons. Let's go check it out. Always wanted to wrestle an alligator. Cool. Well, it was only $8 to get in. The receptionist was very kind and gave me a map, of course. There are 3 floors to check out. Ooh, you see something cool. Those are some big bears. Wow. Huh. Well, it turns out Bill Bear was a store owner. He had an electronics store in Winter Park and in Altamont. And he used these bears as an advertisement in his stores. He had names for them. It's very interesting, huh? Wonder what the heck are bears doing in Central Florida? Of course, there's some space stuff here. This is cool. Mercury capsule. Wow. Very small. Haven't even made it to an exhibit yet. This is just the lobby area. Now let's go check out the museum. All right. We start the tour here on the 4th floor. This floor is about the old Florida history, the ancient Floridians, and up until the early pioneers in the cattle industry began here in Florida. This exhibit talks about the water and plant life, as well as sinkholes in Florida. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you've heard me talk about some sinkholes. I showed one in a recent video from the Yearling Trail in the Ocala National Forest. Here you see some actual pictures of these sinkholes and some stories about people that experience them. Doesn't sound fun. That is a massive sinkhole. Look how big this sinkhole is. You see the size of that camper? That's a large hole. I also did a video from the Citrus Tower in Claremont. From there you can see a lot of small lakes that were sinkholes. That happens pretty often around here. You hear about it on the news occasionally, but it's not something you want to be a part of. And if you see cracks in your home and you live in this area, be aware, definitely get some help on that because you might have a sinkhole nearby. It's a cool exhibit about the indigenous life, what that was like. Something I didn't know is that these mounds made of oyster shells were just the waste from their meals. They would cook the oysters and then leave them in these garbage heaps. They're called middens. It's not really a mound. And now they're used for roadways. They crush them up. You see it commonly in parking lots and on the road. I love oysters. That's a lot of oysters. I can handle about a dozen at a time. I tried 2 dozen once, but that was not good for me. I do love them though. So next time you're walking on a trail in one of Florida's beautiful parks and you see that crushed up coquina, it might have been one of our early ancestors' dinners. It probably was. Discovering a paradise. Florida is a paradise. Oh, the citrus industry. Turns out a company in Winter Garden, Florida, developed the first rubber tires for tractors, and this is one of the tractors. They made it for a farmer out in Iowa. Turns out it worked really well, so they started using it around here for the muddy citrus fields, and here you have it. All those colorful citrus advertisements. Oh, Indian River citrus. Still buy that today. The orange bird. Cool. I like this old citrus paraphernalia. In 1565, citrus was brought from Spain by Spanish settlers here to Central Florida. Then it just spread throughout the whole land. And now we have citrus everywhere. It started growing rampantly through the 1700s and 1800s. The British actually began the process of processing the citrus, making orange juice, and then it has become what it is today, a huge, huge industry. This gun was a part of a murder mystery. The only sheriff to ever get shot in the line of duty here was possibly by this gun, but it was just an old family story. Turns out it's likely not the actual weapon that killed the sheriff, but could be, and it's part of some Orlando history. Some relics from the cattle industry. McClellan saddle, local saddle maker. Old brand, very neat. At one time, Florida was the leader in cattle ranching in the United States. They had more cattle than any other state. Now I think it's around 16th in the country. Still, there's a lot of cattle here. There's a lot of land. With only about 5 large cities in Florida, that leaves a lot of space for cattle to roam. A lot of ranches around. If you drive off the beaten path like I have lots of times, you'll see these ranches with the brand sign, right above it, all over the place. There's a lot out there. 16-foot cracker whip. Some of you may have heard the term Florida cracker. Well, you might think it's a derogatory term, but in fact it's not. People that are Florida crackers quite enjoy being labeled that. It comes from the actual whip, cracking the whip. If you've seen any of my videos on World's Greatest Kiting, you might have seen my friend Chuck. From time to time, I've shown him cracking his whip. He's competed in cracker competitions. He's pretty amazing at it, but it's a thing. People do that, and it's pretty amazing to watch. But it comes from the ranching industry. Here's a look into Florida pioneer life. Spanish moss would make the most terrible bed, I would think. But, oof, no. It's very hard. It's like a solid chunk right here. Seems kind of soft, but there's lots of bugs in Spanish moss. I wouldn't think that's a good idea. But you work with what you got, and that's what you got. Orange press, that is very efficient. Oh. Dinner bell. Recipe for squirrel soup. Baked possum. Anyone with a washing machine, thank whoever you need to thank that you don't have to use that to wash your clothes in. You had to boil your clothes, scrub them, hang them to dry. Can't imagine they last a very long time by doing that. Probably longer than today's clothes, but still, seems annoying. Washing machines are a much better option, wouldn't you say? No need for iPhones and televisions in cracker life when you got a harmonica, some dice, and playing cards. Probably a little bit of whiskey, packed away. This is a sugar press. Put the sugar cane in these holes, and the horses pull this in a rotation, and it gets chewed up by these big grinders here. Just presses it out, squeezes all the sugar juice right out into this barrel. If you have never had sugar cane raw, it is wonderful. Something you should go try. This building used to be the courthouse, or the second courthouse in Orlando. And this was the original courtroom. Unfortunately, That's as far as we can go in the courtroom. You can't go inside. But there's more to see on the second floor. This exhibit is about the steamboats carrying the citrus. This is an actual steam whistle from one of those boats on the St. Johns River. Citrus wasn't the only product being shipped around Central Florida. During the 1894-1895 growing season, a large frost came through and destroyed most of the crop. But for the small town of Sanford, they started growing celery, and so much of it they began producing enough for the entire United States, and it became known as Celery City. Interesting fact. Something else Sanford is known for is their Air Force Base, where most of the fighter pilots were trained.
We never will forget traveling.
And of course, there's a section about Disney. Magic. Mousetrap is right.
Kids, bonfires, you live in shorts and sneakers. There was an awful lot to do without going to be entertained. You entertain yourself.
Very cool pin for you pin collectors out there. The one from the opening of Animal Kingdom. $1971. Lots changed in Orlando since then. That mouse has transformed this city. And the last floor of exhibits. This is from a traditional Chinese dragon dance where the dragon chases a pearl or a ball. There's a globe with locations of mythical stories of dragons. You might know I like Japanese and Asian artistry. It's a little different than my style, but I do notice a lot of dragon images in that style of art. Now entered the Mermaid section of the Mythical Creatures. Another globe indicating the locations of seen mermaids, stories of seen mermaids. Interesting that these hoax mermaids were just made up with a monkey head and fish body and sewn together, and then told people that it was a mermaid, probably charged to come see it. Clever. European variety of mermaid. Looks about the same.
In West Africa, many people appeal to a mermaid-like water spirit.
Not taken our steps piecemeal into the deep sea. You can imagine
This is the size of a giant squid eyeball. That's huge. It's bigger than a basketball. The Mythical Unicorn. Never seen a horse with a goatee, but it's a unicorn, so anything goes. Giant bones. Once thought to be human bones, actually belong to elephants and mammoths, larger prehistoric animals. In the early days of humanity, there were stories of giant humans that once roamed the earth because of these types of bones that used to just surface, and they were actually from large animals. It turns out that the skulls were fragile and they would get crushed over time, and what was left is typically these type of bones, which are very similar to those found in the human body. So it did make a little bit of sense, but today we know better. Something we do not know better about is the skunk ape friends, the elusive Floridian version of Sasquatch, the Skunk Ape. Interesting picture of Skunk Ape, even a beer, the theme of Skunk Ape, well, Swamp Ape here. Well, that's it, I've been triggered. Now I'm in the mood for a beer. What is this strange skeleton, you might ask? Well, it's none other than a manatee. One of my favorite adventures that I didn't make a video about pre-Dre's World days was Wikiwachi. You see a video here, the Mermaids doing their show. The actual mermaid outfits. This mermaid tail was used in the 1950s at Wikiwachi. One of the only, in fact, the only real mermaids that ever existed because, well, mermaids don't exist. Stuff the Magic Dragon, our local hero from the Orlando Magic. A little exhibit about him, or her, not really sure. Another important creature of Florida is Albert and Alberta Gator, the mascots for the Florida Gators. The very last exhibit that we get to see is about the City Beautiful. 50 years of developing downtown Orlando. Today's opening day. Artwork, more local history. A nice exhibit about the civil rights movement in Orlando. Moving on into church scene, the historical churches, and the schools in Orange County. Another very nice exhibit on slavery and the Civil War. A lot of information on what was going on in Orange County at the time. And the last part of the exhibit is a timeline of downtown. All the events that shaped what's happened here over the years. And of course, the last stop, and usually one of my favorite stops in all museums, is the gift shop. Let's go check it out. All right. Cool postcards. Definitely pick up one of these. Some cool images here. Neat books about the area. Oh, there's a interesting murder on the Florida frontier. That would be a good one. I always like these local history books too. Very informative. I love these pencils, especially like the orange one. Gonna get that. Well, friends, that's it for me and us here at the Orange County Regional History Center. It is a rainy day out here. I've got to make it over to the car. I'm gonna scoot quick. We're gonna make our way to maybe grab a beer before heading home for the evening. Beer Works is really good. I've been here a few times, and one of my friends is a brewer here, so I'm a little partial. They won a lot of awards. I'm trying the Schwartz beer today. It's like a dark lager. It's very good. Well, friends, thank you for joining me today on this adventure to downtown Orlando. Motorworks Brewing was really good. The beers are great. It's raining pretty hard outside. Just gotta make my way to the car and bid you adieu. Thanks for joining me, friends. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. If any of you cooks out there would like a recipe for squirrel soup or baked possum, I'll put a link down below where you can find those.